And here I thought we would talk about something else. And maybe this technology went hand in hand with the lost past civilization. And we discussed in a past video who that past civilization may have been. Another race entirely that we may have worked side by side with. And I could imagine all the races and beings had a different specialty. Some being masters of metallurgy, some technology, others mining and building, some the keepers of wisdom. And now all these races told of in the past are gone. And I believe we have reverse engineered much of this, but it's not being utilized or distributed for the common good of the remaining people. And here Global Vision has proposed just this, that we lived side by side with these giants and even smaller races, perhaps aquatic and flying entities. Again, we only have traces of this in lore of past. But here he showed a nice depiction of these large doors with smaller doors built into them. And yes, they may have been retrofitted, but in many cases, they seem to be part of the original door. Simply being a clue and lending to the idea that two species may have coexisted side by side. And again, he makes another comparison with two types of stairs. And again, we've proposed that they've been retrofitted. But in this case, let's consider that they were built this way. Large steps obviously being inconvenient for small people, and small steps would be inconvenient for large people. And if we consider this in the original design of the building, then we can also have an idea of how things were in this timeline, and perhaps large and small coexisting peacefully. And it's a shame that this knowledge is kept from us, but it clearly opposes the narrative they are pushing. And I believe that this narrative is constantly threatened. For such a great being must still exist today, and whenever skeletons are found, they are ushered away and discarded and not displayed for the common people to see. And what cases have we had today, or at least in recent times, showing these possible previous inhabitants of this realm? We have many examples of photographs of giant people, especially in the earlier part of our history, but we have very little video footage. We have this one of this giant in Japan in 1890, and I have made a video on it, and it's one of the few videos on my channel that have been hit by this platform and deemed as inappropriate content for viewers. So we won't play that in this particular video, but I think it's absolutely fascinating. Perhaps one of the more controversial pieces of video I've shown, and we're often told that this was made for a children's movie, but in fact the footage was never used in the movie, only in the preview, and there is more footage that was not used in the preview, which lends to the authenticity of this footage. And this man seems to be of another race, not the same physical makeup as ourselves. Shorter arms, heavier neck, and I've watched this video hundreds of times, and I do believe it's authentic. And we don't get much after that. And here we can see a building, or the remains of one, from the old world. And some of the best examples we see are photos from the early 1900s, and this one being 1909. But in very recent times, we do have an account of a giant, and a few actually, many of them being in Peru, and I've shown this before. And here someone zooming in with a type of P900 on these two figures was startled when the figure stood up and appeared to be at least 12 to 15 feet tall. And this is probably where I'd be hanging out if I was a leftover giant, somewhere on the edge of the known realm. But within the last 20 years, I had heard of an account. Originally I'd heard about it on the Art Bell show, you had a platoon in Afghanistan that was sent to a cave, and there were bones scattered around all over the cave, and told by many of these surviving soldiers, a large giant came out of the cave and moved with a speed and grace that they'd never seen, almost supernatural, and killed many of them, and eventually the remaining platoon killed this giant. And I think from the evidence we see, the giants were not a bad race, but I think confronted with our modern barbaric tactics, the remaining giants may resort to violence. I think when we look at the old depictions of giants in the old world, we see a very peaceful people coexisting with man. And we even see that here in Peru. These two guys just hanging out, having a chat on a mountain. And this race must know that they are threatened today. We don't even speak of them in our narrative, let alone accept them in our population. And very interesting, when we look at this account in Afghanistan, this was a Caucasian, red-haired giant, similar to what we would imagine a Viking to be. And very sad that we wouldn't send some other team to possibly try to communicate or learn about this leftover race. But no, we sent in a military convoy to take him out. And I would love to hear your stories. What other accounts are there of giants in recent history? And as with many subjects, this is something I wanted to share at least a year ago. It was originally shared by Serotonin, and as we can see, this was an official Twitter post by the White House. So an absolutely official picture, and here's what we get. Everything seeming normal until we zoom in and look at this man right here. This man is about double the size of all these people, and we have the jet engine as a reference, as if the people weren't enough. And unbelievable, here just posting this as an official photograph. And what do we see in plain sight? Who is this man? Do any of you know? And here we have another example of what was coined the super soldier. And again, just a photo that surfaced in the tabloids, and someone with a keen eye was able to capture this anomaly. And here we can see this giant man. And as he approaches the other soldier, we get a feel for how massive he really is. Not quite as large as the Secret Service agent, but still a pretty big guy. And that's absolutely it. I hope you enjoyed, and do have a blessed day. Please like, comment, and subscribe.